Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So I just have realized that the main thing that's hindering me from getting people to really understand is that when I go to try and explain who Michael Jackson is, I start talking about Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy in the beginning of Motown. And because of that, the Michael Jackson fans, they're not able to take that transition. Okay? Because they're not like real fans of the Jacksons. If they were real fans of like Michael Jackson and the Jacksons, then they would also be interested in the creation of Motown and the history of Motown. But they're not, because they think that the Jacksons came to an established Motown, that they're separate things, that the Jacksons are over in Indiana and that Motown's in Detroit, Michigan, you know? So they think they're separate. And that's the hard thing. I can't get people to understand that the beginning of Michael takes place here with Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson in Detroit, you know? So this is one of the really good pieces of evidence and stuff. So let me show you this piece right here.
You joined Motown. Was it in its infancy, or had it been around for a couple of years?
It was new, and Smokey was one of the first artists there.
Okay, so first he says you joined Motown. Was it new, or was it in its infancy? And so, see, he said you joined Motown. He's asked her, you joined Motown. Okay, now when she joined Motown, Motown was built already. It was still young, but Motown had actually been built by the time she actually comes there with the Supremes. But he says, you joined Motown. And so what does she instantly talk about? When her understanding of when she joined Motown is because of Smokey. She joined Motown right in the very beginning because she got pregnant by Smokey right after Smokey met Berry Gordy. And then because of that, they would have had to have met. It's part of my story that I know that through all the development of my story, that Diana Ross would have had to have met Berry Gordy at some time, because he's the one that has actually the friendship with Joe Jackson. That Berry Gordy was the one that actually set up everything, because he was the one who actually had everything to lose. See, Smokey Robinson, he's still young. He's 18. He's just 18 years old. Diana Ross, she's just a kid. She's 14. They're just kids. They got their complete future ahead of them, you know? But Berry Gordy, he's an established person. He's been married. He's got kids. He's been a songwriter, but he's not a company record store, owner of the record company. He's not that whatsoever before he meets Smokey Robinson. Berry Gordy's trying to figure it out before he meets Smokey Robinson. It's when he meets Smokey Robinson that everything comes together for Berry Gordy. So then what happens is now Berry Gordy's got his vision. He's got his path of building this record company. He's got the number one artist that he's going to build his whole record company around, Smokey Robinson and the band The Miracles. They've got the whole band ready to go. Just as they're really starting to get into it, what happens is that Smokey Robinson is told by Diana Ross that she's pregnant. Okay, so now Smokey needs to inform Berry Gordy. Hey, Berry, I got Diana Ross, this girl lives in the neighborhood. I got her pregnant. She's only 14 years old, you know? So he's telling him, what do we do? And so this is when you know that Berry Gordy is the one that came up with the plan, because he's the one with everything to lose at that time. This is what they call a motive. Who has the motive at that moment to get rid of the kid? Okay, Smokey is still young, and Diana, Smokey is in a relationship with another girl, but I wouldn't consider that would be enough of a motive to create the giving away of their child. Okay, I don't think that's enough of a motive. The motive has to come through Smokey Robinson obligated Berry Gordy. See, they're connected now. They're trying to build this together. So Smokey has a lot of respect for Berry Gordy because he's a songwriter for Jackie Wilson, who was Smokey Robinson's favorite artist. There's a lot going on there. So when that happens, and they want to make this record company, and Berry's like, I'm going to build a company around you. So when Smokey has the kid now, he's let him down. He's disappointed him. He doesn't want to disappoint him. So when Berry Gordy comes up with the plan, hey, let's do this. I've got this. We'll send the kid over there. They comes up with the plan. Okay, so Smokey doesn't want to let Berry Gordy down because he understands that Berry's starting to try and build a whole record company around him. He doesn't want to ruin that, doesn't want to let him down because he respects Berry Gordy and he's feeling like he screwed him, you know. So that's why that's why you know that Smokey was the one that Berry's the one that said, let's give the kid to my friend. And he's the one with the real motive to get rid of the kid. Okay, it's not Diana and Smokey that have the motive. It's Berry Gordy's got the motive to get rid of the kid. So, Diana Ross, let me play this some more for you right here, just so you can see. This is really what happened when they're right there. That's what I'm saying. When Diana Ross right there, when he asked her about Motown, he said, when do you go to Motown? Well, she went to Motown later, but what she instantly starts talking about is the creation of Motown, because actually, she was there at the very, very, very beginning. She's involved in it too, and it's because that she had gotten pregnant by Smokey Robinson, and she's talking about it in this interview.
And I met Berry in the early days when they were just beginning. I don't know if the name was even Motown then. And kind of met Berry up at Smokey's house.
Okay, so she's like, oh, I met Berry when they were in the very beginning. You know, I don't even know if it was Motown. It wasn't. See, it wasn't even Motown. This is how early on in the beginning of what happened there. The original company, there might even be an Anna thing there, but then the bigger part is Tamla. It officially got, when Berry Gordy officially established his what's known as Motown, it was officially named Tamla. And see, Tamla, think about the name Tamla, the difference, okay? The difference of the reality to, if all these stars were on this record company called Tamla, okay? Would Tamla have this recognition of it in American culture? Oh, Tamla Records, you know? Like, they have like Capitol Records, and there's all the different ones that are out there. None of us like look at that record company like, we don't look at it that way. But there is one, Motown. Motown Records, when they named it Motown, it was gritty. It felt the environment. It like captured the essence of the people and the whole energy that was going on at the time. It really captured it. Motown. Okay, so it starts off as Tamla, but then they evolve to Motown because they give the child away. And so now this is Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson. It originally gets started as Tamla because Berry Gordy's wanting to be like light and airy, and he's wanting to appeal to the white population. That's really what he's doing. So he's not wanting to be like edgy and grungy, you know, and gritty. That's not what Berry Gordy's doing. He wants to be poppy, ooh, 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 yeah, shake it, baby, shake it. That's what Berry Gordy really wants to do. But what happened is when they gave the child away and they developed the company was based around this, that there was the young love, and then his main artist, they had a child, they gave the child away. That's the culture in which the development of the grittiness of Motown. That's how it actually develops. Like how she's saying, it wasn't even Motown. When I met Berry Gordy, when she met Berry, she's like, and then where does she meet Berry Gordy? She doesn't meet Berry Gordy at Motown. She met Berry Gordy at Smokey Robinson's house before it was even called Motown. And I'm saying it's like this kind of evidence and stuff. It's like, I found this stuff just from having a thought. It's like, hey, could Diana Ross be Michael Jackson's mom? I didn't know Smokey Robinson was involved. I didn't know Berry Gordy was involved. But when I went looking and looked for the actual dates that lined up of the real thing, is what you find out is when Michael Jackson's actually conceived. You know what it lines up for? It lines up perfectly with the same time that Smokey Robinson met Berry Gordy. See, people don't know that. I keep trying to pound it in their heads. I keep trying to get them to understand that if you want to understand Michael Jackson, you've got to understand Berry Gordy, Smokey Robinson, and Diana Ross. And this is like the problem I'm having. The Michael Jackson fans cannot transition over to this to understand that this creation, what was taking place right here, this is an environment in which Michael Jackson was created. This is in the environment in which set up for the abandoning of Michael Jackson to the Jackson family. This was the environment in which Diana Ross, and what she even talks more here to even let you know, it's like, now, do you need some more evidence to let you know that Diana Ross was actually sleeping in that house too?
Sharon Burston, which is Berry's niece, was a very close friend of mine, and
She said right there, Sharon Burston. Well, I think she said was Berry's niece, but actually it's Smokey Robinson's niece, and I've heard her later call Sharon Smokey's cousin. And this is one of the things that happens and within the telling of these stories, and there's a lot of trickiness to understanding, is like right there. She just said Sharon Burston was Berry Gordy's niece. She said Berry. She didn't say Smokey, okay? But Sharon Burston is Smokey Robinson's, I believe it's niece. I have heard her call her my cousin also, but I think it's a niece. I think I heard Smokey say that. So, but there's something about that in that house that Smokey Robinson's living in. There's other people living there that I'm not aware of, and I don't know the actual living arrangements that's taking place in that house, because I found out that Smokey Robinson's actual mother had passed away when Smokey Robinson was 10 years old. And then Smokey Robinson's older sister basically took over the raising. So I just don't understand exactly the environment, what's going on in Smokey's house, because Diana Ross said that Smokey has a niece named Sharon that she was best friends with, and because of that, she would sleep in Smokey's house all the time. So it's like I don't know exactly the living environment, what was going on in Smokey's house. It seems kind of like it might have been some crazy party house with hardly any kind of adult supervision going on.
We went to school together, and I used to sleep over there all the time and watch them rehearse in the basement, Claudette and the boys, the guys.
See? I used to sleep over there all the time and watch them rehearse in the basement. So look at that big smile on her face. And then when she says, I used to sleep over there and watch them rehearse. And so first she says Claudette. She has to mention Claudette, because that's the thing. Claudette's Smokey's future wife, but Diana's right there. Now think about the reality. She used to sleep over at that house all the time, okay? Think about the reality. She's 13, she's not even 14 years old, and Claudette's like a year older than her, so she's probably like 14, moving to 15. Claudette's barely that age too. So what do you think is the realities that was Claudette sleeping in that house? Like Claudette, I don't know her actual parents, her situation, but let's assume she's got some form of a parental guidance going on, okay? So Claudette. So yeah, she's in the band. She can make excuses for hanging out there, but would she ever be able to actually stay the night in that house, being of that age, being with all the boys in that house? Do you think that there's a chance that was Claudette staying the night in that house? Probably not. But who is staying in that house all the time, right exactly at the time when Michael Jackson's conceived and Motown's being developed? Who's actually sleeping in the same house with Smokey Robinson? Diana Ross. She's literally sleeping in his house. Okay, I didn't know this when I came up with the idea that Diana Ross was Michael Jackson's mom. I had no idea that I was going to find this stuff. But this is what you find. That the actual time when Michael's conceived, what you actually find is that, yeah, Smokey's hooked up with this girl Claudette, but what you actually find is that Diana Ross is in that house too, because she's best friends with Smokey's niece. And she's sleeping in the house. So Diana's parents didn't have any problem with letting her sleep in that house, with the boys there. That was occurring because she clearly admits to it. So if that's the environment of which Diana was being raised, where her parents were allowing her to sleep in that house because she had the friend, but her parents obviously know there's got to be boys in that house, older boys, that are right there. They would have known that the possibilities of what could occur, but that didn't stop them, right? It happened. She clearly, obviously, plainly tells you, I was sleeping in that house all the time with Smokey Robinson and the guys, and they'd be playing down there in the basement, okay? Right? Exactly at the same time that Motown's being developed. And then what does she say? Oh, I met Berry Gordy at Smokey's house. This has nothing to do, like if you hear the story about the Supremes and how they go to, how they make it to Motown, you will never, one time ever, in any story, the documentary ever, you're never going to hear any story that tells you about the telling of the Supremes where they're meeting, that she's hanging out with Berry Gordy at Smokey Robinson's house before it's even called Motown. It wasn't even Motown. They had not even come up with the name Motown. This is how early in the stages of it is. And then think about the reality. When they meet in that house, And then the simple reality, at that time they're trying to do Tamla, but somehow it evolves into Motown. Well, Motown's that gritty, that edgy, you know? It's not the cheery pop thing, it's the edgy thing. And how do they get to be that edgy and take that chance? Oh, well, because they freaking abandoned their kid. And then also, not only did they abandon their kid, give it to the Jacksons, they write the song Shop Around. And see, Shop Around actually is on the Tamla label. This is another big thing that what I'm telling you about the whole thing. Shop Around is actually about the telling of the story about the abandoning of Michael Jackson. It's really what the story about Smokey Robinson's, whoever the guy, there was a thing I was saying to his mother, but now I know that his mother had died. But so, that's another thing too. Think about Smokey Robinson in reality. The first hit song he has in reality is all about saying a telling from his mother. My mama told me, you better shop around. It's all my mama told me. Okay, his mother died at 10 years old. So now Smokey Robinson in reality, his first big hit song is all about my mama told me. Don't you think that was kind of hard and that's kind of unusual for Smokey Robinson to be writing a song, his first hit song, to be under the context of my mama told me? It's like, yeah, your mama told you. What? Your mama didn't tell you shit because she's fucking dead when you're 10 years old. So it obviously wasn't your mama telling you that shit, but you sure... And I heard Smokey Robinson said his whole world collapsed when his mom died. But he sure didn't have a problem writing a song about it and telling the world that, oh, my mama telling me to shop around, putting his mom in this real negative light, saying, don't be sold on the very first one. A pretty girl's come a dime a dozen. You gotta find one who's gonna give you true loving. Okay, he's speaking from the context that his mother told him to say that. His mother's the one fucking downgrading whoever this fucking girl is that Smokey Robinson had an interest for. That's the context of the song. So how in the hell does Smokey Robinson get the nerve to be like, oh, you know what? My first song, let me talk about my mother, you know, my dead mother. Let me talk about my dead mother, and then here, we'll make a hit song about it, okay? But that's what fucking happened, isn't it? Now, the reality of why he's enables himself to talk about his dead mother, because the reality of that situation was that he was giving away his child. So yeah, when you start talking about the reality of the understanding of that song, it's like, yeah, how does he bring his mother into that song? Because the song is about the giving away of his fucking child. Now we can get in the real world of where we are in the mentality levels of how this shit's being constructed, how it was developed. And what happened is, that song, Shop Around, that's the first freaking million-selling record for, it's actually Tamla. It's not even Motown. That's Tamla. And then what happens, you can see how when Berry Gordy realizes that, he says, wow, that's the song. Shop Around was the song that was the hit, because Berry Gordy knows that that song was written about the abandoning of the child. And then Berry Gordy understands the situation. So Berry Gordy, like, think about the reality. That song was the song that went to sell 1 million records. Now, and that's the song about the abandoning of their child and stuff. And the gritty, it's really gritty. And when Berry Gordy realized that that gritty, edgy stuff, that's what sold, that's when Berry Gordy said, you know what? Let's build our company around who we are in this gritty edginess, and let's call it Motown. That's how the fucking name Motown comes about, all of it. The only reason Motown's even in existence is because Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy came up with a plan to abandon this unwanted child that they had that was going to hinder their ability to do this Motown thing. But if they don't abandon the child, they don't write the song Shop Around. If Shop Around doesn't become the hit, they don't understand that the edgy thing is what they need to be going, and then that's how they move to Motown. So that's what I'm saying. They're literally, without Michael Jackson, without this occurring, this is how important Michael Jackson is in the history of music history and all of our history. It's so much bigger than what people understand. Think about the simple reality. If they don't abandon their kid, we literally never have the name Motown. Because they never would have write the song Shop Around that's about the abandoning of their kid. If they don't write the song that's about the abandoning of their kid, That's not, then if they don't write that song, then that song doesn't become the million seller. That's the first hit song that was on that label. And it was Tamla. It was for Tamla. It wasn't for Motown. It's for Tamla that song became the seller. Then they transitioned. So not the other thing. They'd established the name Tamla. What gave Berry Gordy the nerve to change that name from Tamla to Motown? He had to go off of that name that was established as selling the first hit record. But then he abandoned that and goes to Motown because he understood that once it sold, he knew that the edginess of understanding of what that meant, that was the direction and the guidance of what he was going to build Motown up. And he called it Motown. And that was the whole guidance and how the edgy thing, the real clean image, very good to the public, but in the music, edgy, hardcore, real music. That's what they did. And it all was created around the development about the abandonment of Michael Jackson. It's what the whole thing, and it's like, that's why I can't get people to understand. It's like, well, when you want to, as I said, when people say, well, tell me how to prove Michael Jackson. Okay, well, I got to explain Motown to you. And they can't get it. And it's like, yeah, you don't get it. You don't understand how important Michael is. He developed, all of this stuff developed because of him. And then when he comes back to the Jacksons and now how all of that develops, right? None of that develops if Michael doesn't go to that family. We never hear that, none of that stuff. So Michael Jackson, like the reality of what he is and what he brought into this world because of his existence, it's big. It's really, really big. And who had to bear the burden of that his whole life? Michael Jackson. And when you're a guy dealing with that kind of fucking burdens in your life, do you think you're going to fucking care if people are accusing you of being a pedophile because you enjoy the company of fucking kids? If he enjoyed the company and friendship of kids, if that's the friendship and company he enjoyed fucking hanging out with them because he's dealing with all this fucking madness in his mind, how many of you people are dealing with the madness of what Michael Jackson had to deal with in his reality? This fucking madness. All this shit was here. He wasn't a Jackson. They're all fucking him. The whole public's telling him to be this way, all that stuff. Don't you think within that fucking madness, maybe you might resort back to hanging around with fucking kids who are just like not involved in that fucking madness? Isn't that a fucking explanation for that? But no, everybody's got to say, no, I must be fucking those kids because that's all you stupid fucking losers can see because you're fucking evil scumbag losers.